Great for everyone! And finally, we have a new chapter of the magical battle. This time, the chapter was published in 13 pages. There is a possibility that the author composed the chapter before his break, but this is no longer 7. And as I understand it, this is a direct continuation of chapter 262, or rather, the second part of it. Not 263, but 262. The chapter begins in the form of Yuta's lifeless body. By the way, a couple of days before the chapter, this art came out, and he almost exactly guessed this angle. Well, maybe it's a little bit different. Sukuna makes a shot, but Yuta parries it. The sudden speed amazes even a two-faced one. Yuta makes a throw through itself. Throwing the carcass, Sukuna, as if lying down, meets the sock in the face with an erotic look, managing to cover himself with his left hand. Two-Face blocks this blow, but flies away a couple of meters. Nowadays, we are told that Yuta cannot use any other techniques except infinity. Moreover, Yuta himself notices that Sukuna lost his left arm and never used the world incision again. From this, it turns out that their assumptions earlier on the use of this technique turned out to be correct. But he also logically assumes that stretching, or rather strengthening, is the only way to overcome infinity. Then, having risen, the sucker is already beaten on the head. Two-Face is a little shocked, and Yuta can't get used to Gojo's long arms and legs. Sukuna makes a kick, but Yuta dodges. There is an exchange of blows, again the opponents change, and this time Sukuna takes the upper hand. He blocks the last kick. Six-Eyed goes the distance, and Yuta tries to repeat the same technique that he used at the beginning of the battle with the King of Curses, but somehow the bitch couldn't be moved. Yuta understands that mastering the infinity technique in just one workout is too difficult, and it really turns out to be so difficult that due to such a nuance as time, now Yuta has problems with the accuracy of applying these techniques. But he also realized why these 6 eyes were needed. This is a prerequisite. Otherwise, use this, well, it's just impossible. Yuta remembers in difficulty how Gojo repeatedly repeated his catchphrase, "It's okay, I'm the strongest." Now, the meanings of these words were much heavier. How much effort had to be made in order to state it so confidently? Gojo is just incredible, and Yuta is finally realizing this simple truth. Noticing confusion or admiration for his sensei, Sukuna concentrates the cursed energy in his right hand and hits the opponent. A block is taking place. Previously, the two-faced one asks the question, does he have time for such thoughts? Sukuna knows about the Yuta technique, according to Suguru Geto, who warned him about it all in advance, but he also knows about the condition where it is necessary for Rika to absorb a part of the body, so that Yuta copies a certain technique. But even knowing all this, the anxiety is growing. Sukuna wonders, and will Yuta be able to apply previously used techniques? Although with the current trend, he firmly believes that Yuta can only use infinity. Also, the king was overtaken by thoughts about time. How long will Yuta be able to hold out? And will he stay in such a body after finishing the Kinryaku technique? But suddenly, Sukuna figured out what might be the plan. And this is the use of that purple grenade. In the flashbacks, Gojo begins to find fault with Yuta because of his inconsistency in using the cursed technique. But Samaki comes to his defense, who believes that Gojo is too strict with Yuta, and others also stand up for their friend. But in reality, Yuta is folding seals and preparing to use his first purple in battle. But suddenly, Sukuna flies in, stopping the seal with his severed hand and strikes a couple of blows to the head. Sukuna realizes that the use of purple cannot be allowed in any way. Yuta gets up with a bruised face, stupidly stands in a stance and uses blue. Suddenly, a row of skulls rises up behind him, and he is the one. The voice recorder on which the selected first recording is located sounds, "Damn Inumaki technique, don't move." Seeing the use of the technique by this shaman, Sukuna is shocked, and Yuta manages to perform a chant and apply the seals. During this time, the recorder drops, and the Ute is ready to charge with purple at any second. And guys, without a break, next week the author will finally release the long-awaited chapter. He was gone for almost a month. I hope he improved his health there. By the way, the output of this chapter is also controversial. because it was divided into 2 parts. The first part was released before the author took a break. The second one is after that. And, most likely, this happened because the author was able to release only 7 pages during the publishing or editorial period. Previously, it was always assumed that the author had some kind of reserve of chapters in advance, so that if something happened, he could release them. Unfortunately, we do not know the exact rearrangement of the author's movements in Japan, as well as his real name. But nevertheless, this indicator tells us that this is how you can divide a chapter. Well, in short, something happened there, and they decided to divide the chapter. At the end of the chapter, it also became clear why. Walking somewhere through the tunnel, Yuta asked for Inumaki's help, even though he had previously copied his technique. And in principle, why did you need his help then? Well, now we understand. This is the same recording on a dictaphone, so that she decides such a moment. Well, as usual, the author is intrigued, as at the end of the last chapter. If at the beginning of chapter 262, Sukuna had the initiative, now Yuta is already taking it over. And as you can see, technically using Gojo's body is also problematic, because getting used to the new length of arms and legs is really difficult. Imagine if your arms suddenly became 10 centimeters longer, and your legs were 20 centimeters longer, and your strike, which was closer, suddenly becomes distant. But it's still bullshit. I think during that training, Yuta not only learned how to use purple, but also to strengthen it with barrier techniques, and also use the infinity technique. But we see that even here it turns out there are some problems. Definitely yes. The fact that Gojo has been learning to use both 6 eyes and the infinity technique since childhood. Because of this, he really can rightfully call himself the strongest. And of course, Yuta cannot adapt so quickly to a new body, to incredible technique and concentration in the form of 6 eyes. But he also checked on himself how difficult it is to be Satoru Gojo, and how much work it would take to just declare such big words like that, and then prove it all in practice. But as I understand it, during the battle with Sukuna, Gojo realized his maximum, or rather created a purple grenade. The maximum output, or rather the maximum use of purple, and Yuta can use the same now. Yes, during the battle with Sukuna, he clearly used red, but what prevented him from using purple earlier? In general, such thoughts caught up with me after reading part 262 of the 2nd chapter. Well, you write in the comments, what do you think of the head? Well, in the next chapter, I hope to see if Yuta can settle into a new body or not. Well, that's it. Good luck to everyone, and bye.